The words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. All things are wearisome. More than one can say, the eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. What has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. Well, if you weren't feeling down before I quoted that passage from Ecclesiastes 1, I'm pretty sure you are now. Years ago, I chaired a worship planning committee. At one point, I thought it would be a good idea to open up each weekly meeting with a brief devotional. However, for some reason which I still can't imagine, I decided to launch the devotional series by going through the book of Ecclesiastes. Week 1 went down like a lead balloon. It seems that starting a devotional series with the verse meaningless, meaningless, just didn't set the right tone. Of course, not everything is meaningless. But the teacher was trying to make a point here. I'm just not sure that I like it all that much. When it comes down to it, the teacher is saying that our individual lives are just one endless, repetitive cycle taking place within a world that continues on eternally. The world in which we live was here before us and will continue long after we are gone. The teacher paints a rather gloomy portrait of our lives, wearisome, unquenchable, old news, and soon to be forgotten. Now, there is a part of me that understands what the teacher is talking about. My father was an avid Blue Jays fan. He and my mom would buy these ticket packages and attend games all through the baseball season. But my father passed away years before the Jays started their run of divisional and eventually world championships. I have often thought about how life went on after my father died and that he never got to see the Blue Jays win the World Series. Life will go on long after I'm gone, and all kinds of cool things are going to happen that I will never get to know or even dream about. Of course, there will be some pretty bad stuff that I will be spared the experience of as well. I was at a conference one time and the speaker asked us to name our great-grandparents. Ipsos did a poll and found over half the population couldn't name any grandparent and only 14% could name one. So the world went on long before we came on the scene, and it will continue long after us, and only a couple of generations will pass, and we will be long forgotten. However, I repeat, however, I would like to think that is not the only way to look at our lives. It is a little tricky to quote just one part of Ecclesiastes, because even a positive verse or two can soon be followed by more doom and gloom. However, I would like to point to a brief, less gloomy moment in chapter 3, verse 11. He, God, has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. This verse follows the famous, at least for my generation, For Every Season passage. Many people know that passage because of the song Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds. I suppose it is only fair to point out that soon after this one moment of light in Ecclesiastes, it gets gloomy again with more life is meaningless comments. But for a brief second, the teacher points to what I believe lays at the heart of this message. First, everything is beautiful in its time. Secondly, eternity is in the human heart. And finally, This is beyond what we can understand, what we can fathom. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, we, and for that matter, all of creation is beautiful. Maybe not always physically, but there's a beauty in creation. The intricacy, the interconnections, the vastness, the microcosmic, color, light, seasons, variety, and on it goes. The beauty of creation includes us, even if we're not willing to accept it. You may not feel beautiful. You may even feel insignificant. That is certainly the picture the teacher paints. But we are not insignificant. Yes, we may only be here a short time, and yes, future generations will not remember the vast majority of us. But during this brief interlude that we are on earth, we are significant. We have an opportunity to contribute to this world that we are a part of, to make this world an even more beautiful place. Secondly, while yes, our time on earth is brief, this time is just the start. Eternity is set into our heart. I'm going to avoid getting into what heaven is all about. Personally, I see it as an eternal jam session with David on the harp and long forays looking at the most magnificent landscape that I could never have imagined. I'm probably wrong on both counts, but my understanding is that heaven is pretty cool. What the author is saying is, yes, we are but a mere brief speck, soon to be forgotten. But just because we are no longer here on earth doesn't mean that we are no longer. Eternity waits for us. And one day, every single one of us will make that transition and shed this flesh that both enables and entraps us. Finally, the teacher points out the obvious. This is just too big for us to grasp. I like watching science shows, especially ones on physics. However, my viewing experience pretty much always follows the same pattern. Let's take the theory that all time exists all the time. Basically, this means that everything that has ever happened, everything that is happening, and everything that will happen is happening right now, all at the same time. Have I lost you yet? So the narrator says something along the lines of, this is physics for dummies. Then they lay out the first ideas, and I can follow them. Then they build on those ideas, and I can barely follow them. Then they say something that I just can't grasp. Then they build on that with something I don't understand at all, and then I switch the channels. But just because I can't grasp it doesn't make it any less real. Life can be pretty wearisome and seem meaningless at times. However, we were made for eternity. And when we keep our eternal nature in mind, then the brief time we are here on earth is kept in perspective. Yes, life can be difficult, full of tragedy, a burden, and far too short, while at the same time feeling far too long. But as eternal beings, this is just the prelude to something far greater, far more interesting, far more invigorating, and new every morning. God bless.